Hello and welcome to Change is Possible podcast. My name is Ani Filipova and I'm your host. When I left my banking career to try something new, the number one question everyone asked me was, how did you find the courage? The thing is, it's not about the courage. It is about knowing what you want and planning for it. That's why I started this podcast, to help you make your career change possible. Each of our guests have done a successful career change, and we are going to discuss practical advice, actionable tips, and inspirational stories that can help you to get unstuck and transition into work that you love. Let's get started. Hi everyone. My guest today is Morgan McKenney. She's the CEO of Provenance Blockchain Foundation, which is a public blockchain built specifically for financial services use cases and being leveraged by over 50 financial institutions today. In this role, she is focused on helping financial services participants leverage the value of digital money, digital assets, and blockchain to transform financial services. Prior to Provenance Blockchain, she was special advisor to Center, focused on trusted use of stablecoins, starting with USDC. And she spent nearly 18 years at Citi in a range of senior operating roles around the world. I met Morgan in Hong Kong. We used to work together for 4 years. Then she went back to the US, and there we are today talking about career pivots. Hi, Morgan. I'm delighted to welcome you to the podcast.
Thanks so much, Annie, for having me. I'm absolutely delighted to be here.
So, interesting long career. And just before we started, I realized that the things that we're going to talk about, I have absolutely no idea what are they, because for the 4 years we were working in Hong Kong, I only knew the things that are happening in Hong Kong. Now I'm going to learn the rest of the story. So, first things first, you graduated computer science. What led you then after that to banking? What was your first job after you finished school and why?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, coming out of college a long time ago, I thought that Wall Street would be a great start to learn more about how markets and finance and economies work and operate. My only challenge was that I grew up in DC in a military family, so I really had no connections. I had done no Wall Street internships. And particularly memorably, I pounded the pavement in New York City, literally around Wall Street, looking for a job, and that was fairly unsuccessful. But I managed to get a great job at Capital One, which was at the time a very young upstart in the consumer finance space. They were using computers to test marketing offers, for example. But then, about 3 months after I had settled into my first job after college, an alumni from the college who was a famous trader called me and asked me to be his apprentice and move down to Florida and start working for him. And I'd never been to Florida, didn't know anyone there, but that was my shot. And that's how I got my start on Wall Street.
Wow. And what happened after that? Did you go after that to Citi or you had other jobs?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I lasted longer in this role, in this first role, than anybody of my predecessors. So I consider that a statement to my fortitude. But then because I was a trader and traded a portfolio of derivatives and equities, I then worked for a company called Life, London International Financial Futures and Options Exchange, which at the time was the second largest futures exchange in the world. And I learned about hubris because they had an open outcry platform in London, central London, and a German upstart electronic exchange moved liquidity of their major product, which was the German Bund derivative at the time, before the euro happened. And so I learned about the need to adopt technology. So Life had to develop an electronic trading platform, and I got to sell direct market access to US participants. And after that, I went to business school.
And why did you decide to pursue an MBA? And I'm asking you this question because when I coach people on career, the one question they always ask, is MBA needed? What does MBA give you? Is it critical today, and why did you decide to pursue it?
Absolutely. Well, for those of you in your audience that might be familiar with George Seurat's art, I'm a pointillist. So I'm always kind of taking in all kinds of inputs and just building the bigger picture. That's sort of what I've done my whole career. So for me, no matter how amazing your jobs were, and I had great jobs, you can't get a full exposure to all the disciplines of business and management earlier in your career. And an MBA gives you a very nice grounding in things like marketing and strategy and operations. And so it also gives you, at many schools, an incredible network of peers that, for me, are lifelong friends. Because my uni didn't have a lot of folks that went into business. And so my network from my time getting my MBA has created lifelong friends and peers and mentors, a global group of folks facing similar challenges and opportunities in their career as I am. So it's a very personal decision. But for me, even though I wasn't changing careers, which often people use MBAs to do, it was transformative for my career. It gave me the seal of an MBA, grounding, the network, and optionality to take some risks.
I see. And how did you decide to join Citi?
It was actually thanks to my section mate. So she knew I was looking for a summer role in strategy. I figured, again, I'm trying to get different disciplines. I hadn't done strategy before in financial services. She had heard about a job. She didn't want it. She pointed me, this wouldn't be something that was easy to find on your own. And that's how I got my start. I was actually a summer associate at Citi, and I liked it and went back. So I owe my 18 years career to a section mate who really just opened me up to that role. And it turned out to be an amazing set of jobs.
Great. So far, since you graduated, you haven't had a real technical computer job, right? Ever. Mm-hmm. You always use the tech as a means to do your business job, right?
Absolutely. I'm a tech for business and customer relevance person. Exactly. How do you apply the tech to win with customers?
Okay. All right. So in Citibank, you had a fantastic career. So you were a CFO and a COO for the global transactional business in Citi. Then you were heading a global product, then a region in Asia covering payments, cards, and innovation. Finally, you moved to consumer, and you were the global COO for the consumer business of Citibank. What skills did you consider critical to have all these career shifts?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think one thing I learned early in my career at Citi was collaboration and kind of this concept of how can I help, right? I worked for Bob Druskin at the time, who was running the institutional business, and then he became CEO of Citi. And instead of using that office to sort of demand things from folks, it was really like, how can I help? So I think collaboration gets you a long way. Always trying to help folks out when they reach out. The second was passion to learn about the world, live globally and immerse myself. And, you know, being in different markets, you get energy from folks and learning, meeting different people. I think I'm a complex problem solver. So at the heart of it, a lot of business is ultimately about solving your clients' problems, understanding their environment, their context, their strategy, and marrying it up with how you can support them. And then I think ultimately it's about adaptability, really embracing the uncertain, the unknown, the new business, the new role. And I've found there's always a method to the madness, meaning, you know, countries work the way they work for a lot of reasons, and you can figure it out. It's just a matter of enjoying the discovery and giving yourself grace to figure things out. So maybe those are a few of the skills that were important in these career shifts.
Actually, I remember when we met for the first time in Hong Kong and you were telling me about the ecosystem. You just are trying to find out what is the ecosystem around you and where is your place in this ecosystem. Is that your approach generally?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think of it as always just building the bigger picture. So taking in, you know, from a conversation with anyone, how does that fit? You know, where does it fit in the picture? And you're just always building a more refined picture of how the whole ecosystem works. So absolutely, I think it's about that curiosity and then problem solving, fitting it into where it goes, if you will.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you chose an international career because you wanted to learn and you were curious about the world at large. What should people plan and do if they also want to have an international career?
Yeah, absolutely. And I grew up in a military family, as I mentioned, where my parents moved around a ton before I was born. And I would hear all these stories about how my dad, as an Air Force pilot, had landed in all these countries. And so I think I personally had wanderlust early on, you know, and saved up my money after college and traveled across Europe as a 21-year-old for like 13 countries across 3 months. But for all your listeners, I would always encourage folks to embrace an international posting in their career because it really is a very big world out there. And so an international posting gives you so much learning, both personally and professionally. On the personal side, it's a new home base to travel from and explore, obviously, food and culture of a different place. And professionally, these are different markets. They're different clients. It's a different working culture. And so from my point of view, it's really helpful to learn about different systems and different approaches to life. It gives you balance to have perspective. These are different political systems, economic models, healthcare, business, history, heritage as influencers into how and why people live the way they do around the world. So from my point of view, it's fascinating, and experiencing it on the ground as a resident allows you to really get more nuanced and deeper understanding rather than a leisure visit or a holiday, which of course is great. But the way I see it, I got paid to better understand how over 4 billion people live and work around the world. And I just find that endlessly fascinating.
No, absolutely. I find this endlessly fascinating too. I love travel.
Yeah.
As you know, crossing several regions too. So total working career so far, it's more than 23 or 4 years, right? And
roughly.
Then,
I don't want to date myself.
And then you decided to take a sabbatical. What drove this decision?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first thing I'll say is a sabbatical is a deeply personal decision. And I took one after 18 years of pedal to the metal, high profile and demanding roles at Citi. And it had always been something I planned on, but it needed to be at the right time. And at the time, Citi had received sort of a large task from regulators to really get at the root of its data and its controls. And as an innovation leader, I felt my opportunity cost of taking off some time was low. And I also think with, both COVID and the gig economy, things have gotten more fluid in terms of people's ability to work different jobs, work remotely. And so I would say you shouldn't be afraid to take a sabbatical, but have a plan, right? So do your finances, be clear what you want out of it. And for me, I had several goals, and everyone, there might be very personal factors in each person's decision. But for me, I needed to restore the battery, and that includes a lot of joy factor items, even during the heart of COVID. So that meant travel with family, taking my 3 nieces to Paris. I did a big physical challenge called the Haute Route in Europe, which is an alpine trek high in the mountains. And the second thing I did was really step back and focus on the future of finance, right? Digital has been disrupting every industry, finance included. And now with the advent and maturation of digital money and digital assets and blockchain, I really feel that this is finance's 1998 moment, or whenever you felt the internet was really coming online. And it's a chance to majorly re-architect the infrastructure of finance, how you issue assets and how those assets, go on in their journey from being financed and serviced and securitized. I also step back on sustainable leadership from a business leadership point of view. COVID only exposed how big some of the most challenging problems are, and in many cases made them larger. And how can business leaders really try to address those challenges in how they lead, how they use the assets of the firm to achieve their mission. And then on the personal side, I renovated an apartment. That is a life pied-à-terre as we think about, our home bases, right? So that was really important as well. But ultimately, I wanted to step back on my career after over 20 years working and assess what do the next 2 decades of my life look up. I want to obviously dial up mission and impact and responsibly lead the future of finance.
Great. And then the sabbatical resulted in you leaving your corporate career. Was that the plan all along, or it just happened naturally?
Well, I think the sabbatical gave me distance. It's hard when you're immersed, and work is consuming, right, for most folks. So you're immersed.
Absolutely.
You can really only look at things right in front of you, right, your job and what you're trying to do and how you're trying to work with the team. So I think the sabbatical gave me distance. I didn't want to make any rash decisions. Citi was an amazing place with amazing people. So I wanted to be able to have distance. I think for me, again, I would encourage folks to take stock of your learning curve periodically, right? And so for me, anywhere, if you're 18 years anywhere, even if you've had amazing roles and they've been very different around the world, it's one corporate context, right? It's a specific kind of space. So it's a big world out there. So I encourage folks, take stock of your learning curve. If your learning curve is flattening out in your career, you aren't developing yourself to your max potential. And so it's time to change something up, right? Change up your function, change up your company, change up the domain you're in, change up your market. But all of that will really, I view these as steps in your career, and every step you take inspires you and enables you to take even a bigger job. And so really it's about changing up the environment to continue to grow.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I had similar kind of thoughts because once you change the environment and you get up in the morning and there are no 25 meetings till late at night, and then you have time and you start thinking about things and start learning, and the doors open in front of you. Even you just have to just grab them. That's what my experience was. So a lot of people were worried that they would have, how are they going to explain this gap in their CV? And how do they find the next job? What is your experience with that? And any advice you can give from what you went through?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was lucky in that actually Citi had just launched a new sabbatical program, which I think is fantastic. Again, after COVID, a lot of people needed to step back, and it's a great talent retention tool in general, right? Because these are long careers at some of these big companies, and the theme was renew, refresh, recharge, right? And really open to you to how you wanted to use it. So I think for me, it wasn't really a gap on my CV per se, because I took the 3-month formal sabbatical, and then I didn't have to serve out my notice period. So it was a great opportunity again to step back. But I think, again, the roles in life are a lot more fluid these days. And I think even with millennials coming online who want to try, and advancing in their careers, they want to try a range of careers. So I think people's flexibility is a lot different than a decade ago or so in terms of gaps in CVs or changing up experiences. I think it's just important to be true to what motivates you and stay in touch with that, right? So you are always working on things that you're passionate and motivated about to be at your best.
Yes, great. Yeah, thank you. And how different is your job now? You're the CEO of the Provenance Blockchain Foundation. If you can just walk us through your day and how different it is from what you did before.
Absolutely. And my role is significantly different. I'd say it's sort of opposite day. So the first thing, the good news about being in blockchain space, first of all, is, my wardrobe, right? I have 5 pairs of Vans, I have 5 sweaters and 5 puffy jackets because it's a little chilly in San Francisco. So, I just rotate those through. But in all seriousness, it's my first CEO role, and that has its new responsibilities, right? The buck stops here. And I'm in scale-up mode in this role versus obviously being at a very large global established brand. I'm now in an emerging tech space, trying to reshape an entire industry from how things have always been done. I mean, decentralized finance is really opposite day from how finance works today, right? Which is highly intermediated. And so I'm working on growing adoption of Provenance Blockchain, which is a leading edge public blockchain with financial services participants. So most of my time is spent building and attracting talent, building the brand, platform development, and obviously speaking with users, meaning financial services participants that can harness the value of blockchain, and developers. We're building out a developer ecosystem to build things like privacy dApps or identity credentialing dApps. So DeFi is very different from how financial services gets done. So there's a lot of education and a lot of communication. So I've broadened my network in a ton of ways, from broadening out all kinds of traditional financial institutions, right? Folks that I didn't work with closely during my time at Citi, fintechs as users, to Silicon Valley, which is a big part of the Hash investors. Hash is the utility token on Provenance, garnering new interest from institutional investors, and to crypto influencers. I've been speaking with, I spoke with, Randy Zuckerberg recently. He's trying to bring a lot more women in Web3. And lastly is the retail market, because we're listed on OKCoin. So Hash is publicly available on OKCoin, which is a crypto exchange. And so we have to kind of tell our story about Hash to retail investors as well. So quite different in a nutshell.
Yeah. Very, very different knowing what it was before. But very exciting. Very exciting.
Yeah, definitely.
So you had such a diverse career, but I'm sure that, it looks so easy. All the successes that you achieved seemed like you knew what you're doing and everything was perfect. But we all know that it doesn't work this way. Life, it doesn't happen this way. So what was this tough moment in your career when you had to draw on all your strength to keep going?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a great opportunity to reflect on your podcast, thinking about how, how do you adapt to change? How do you seek out change? And I mean, as I reflect on my career, there's been maybe 4 leaps, right? The first leap was when I became CFO of a $10 billion publicly reported business at a young age. And I call that my first gray hair job. And that was the job that I could actually be fired for non-performance, right? My roles before, I never had that fear.
Yeah.
In that case, I got a coach for the first time, which was really helpful because no matter how smart you are and how thoughtful you are, again, as you take on increasing responsibilities, you definitely cannot think of everything. And a coach really helps you consider things more holistically. So that was, I think, one way that really helped me move into a significant leadership role. I think going from CFO and COO roles, meaning advising, sort of strategic advisors, to head of a large operating business in need of transformation. Even if you're doing that at a senior title at Citi, you really go back down the ladder. You go down to square one, really, because running a P&L, a business, is a different set of competencies. So there, I think, it was really seeking out mentors and advisors, hiring and building on the team. And then I think this role, the COO role with Jane Fraser when she was running consumer, it's a very large role. It's half of Citi, with significant differentiating operating characteristics. And there I learned a lot about prioritization, right? I mean, only big things moved the needle in a business as large as Citi's consumer business. So really learning how to more deeply prioritize. And then the current role, I'm pretty much changing everything, including my geographic. So I think big picture, navigating these changes requires great mentors, advisors, coaches, staying focused on the big picture. I mean, I keep a Post-it note in my, what are the big rocks, de-risking biggest challenges to success. And most importantly, not being afraid to ask questions. I think no one expects you to know everything coming into these new roles. I mean, so not being afraid to ask questions, and often, not knowing a lot helps you bring new ideas to a team as well. And there's no shortage, Annie, no substitute for hard work. I think ultimately, this is, and maybe why I like hiking so much. It really is step by step. That's how you build businesses. That's how you win with clients. There's no fast track. It's really step by step, staying focused on the big things.
Totally. It doesn't happen without effort.
Yeah.
You wake up, you make the first step, you do the second step, the third step, and so on and so forth.
Absolutely.
You started talking about mentors. Who were these people in your career who helped you the most? Discussing your jobs or even with life decisions?
Yeah, and I would say here, so many people. So it's been former bosses. I met up with one esteemed former boss for brunch in London here, a day or two ago. Managers, obviously, mentors who I worked for in the past, family members. They know you deeply well. So, and my business school mates as well. So I think each kind of type of network brings you different lens. And I encourage all your listeners to stay in touch with people. So for instance, your family knows you the best, but they might not be deep in your professional space, right? But they might know kind of what makes you work and motivates you. Your bosses see you professionally, and they can help provide a lens given their understanding of the dynamics of the firm and their personal experience of how they got to where they are. Mentors can provide distance, right? They might not know you as well personally or professionally, but they're very wise and have seen a lot. And then, my business school mates have seen it all kind of at the same stage of career. So they've seen the ups and the downs and can provide another important lens. They know me well, and they're generally speaking in financial services as an example.
Yeah, so the bottom line is, even for you, somebody so successful in their career, you are not afraid and not ashamed to ask for help. And ask for help wide, so you can get very diverse opinions. So that's really a great takeaway for the listeners. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, we're towards the end of the podcast. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to ask you to give to the listeners 3 takeaways, 3 key things they should have in mind when they plan a career pivot.
Absolutely. And I hope, Annie, you'll indulge me with 4. So I was reflecting.
Go ahead. 4.
There we go. We're adding 1. But so I'd say the first one, again, is think about your professional learning curve. What types of roles will stretch you? The roles that leverage your strengths while building new capabilities. And it's ultimately about maximizing your potential. And I would encourage everyone to take leaps in your career. Right? Take the gray hair job. When I landed in Asia, when I met you, Annie, I was on my one-way ticket. I had butterflies when I landed, right? I was moving halfway across the world. None of my family is in Asia. And so you can't do that all the time, but you should do that some of the time, right? So people aren't offering you the job if they didn't think you could do it. So take the stretch roles. That's point 1. Second point, I would say be in tune with what motivates you, both nearer term and longer term. And that sounds obvious, but liking your boss and liking your content is a very simple way to have a great career, right? Because most of your learning comes on the job and you're learning from those around you, mainly your bosses. And in my view, life is too short to work for bad bosses. If you work for great people, they will develop you in your current role and they'll support you wherever you might like to go to next. And liking your content means your passion and energy will be aligned. So stay in tune with what motivates you and like your boss and your content. I think maybe the third point is embrace change as an opportunity. It's an opportunity to grow, to learn, to step up. Humans don't really like change, right? We make the same commute, we take the same exit, same door, but humans are also remarkably adaptable, and the pace of change in the world has accelerated for all kinds of reasons. And those that embrace change will have more great opportunities shown to them. And the last is really spending enough of your time, medium and long-term networking and collaborating and staying in touch with folks. Always trying to reach out a hand. How can I help? But also seek out smart, interesting people doing great things. They will inspire you. The world is big, but it's also small, and you never know how paths will intersect in the future. So I think, this range of advisors that you build in your life, again, from all parts of your career and people you meet along the way, really can provide great input. And, if you're listening, open up new opportunities for you as you go along in your career, and then help you embrace pivots and see opportunities as they surface.
If you could see me, you will see how I'm nodding. Absolutely. Great suggestions. Great takeaways. Thank you, Morgan. It was really great talking to you after a long time. I wish you all the best.
Across the world. Thank you so much, Annie, for having me on. And it's been, it was so fun working with you, and it's a great opportunity to chat with you on your podcast.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Likewise.
All the best to you.
Thanks, Annie.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you want to be notified of future episodes, please hit the subscribe button. I would love to hear your feedback. Please write a review whenever you can. Thank you and have a great day.